Yoichi Isagi is no more. In simple terms, Isagi is now the brother of Shido, born to the Shido family, and frankly, he gains a large portion of the personality that Shido has. Shido is kind of an odd brother to have, and not because of his mannerisms, not because of anything really else, not because of his attitude, not because of the way he acts. Shido is just something that is interesting. Isagi is the younger brother, not by a lot, but he is the younger brother to the largest extent. His older brother would always kind of mess with him, bully him, but Shido would be very protective of his younger brother, Yoichi Shido. He would be extremely protective. He would make sure that Isagi, or obviously Yoichi Shido, is good to go and everything is fine. Of course, he would kind of mess with him here and there, and he would kind of obviously make fun of him here and there like an older brother would. But other than that, he would always make sure his younger brother is good. He would always make sure he's safe, and he would always make sure that they're having fun playing football. Because Shido and the Shido brothers would be known everywhere about how good they are. And frankly, they would go against some of the best competition you can possibly see. Shido, or basically the older brother, would absolutely dominate the field. And Yoichi Shido would kind of struggle here and there just with his kind of identity on the field, because what is he supposed to do in the light of his brother, and what is he supposed to do to shine brighter than his brother? His brother is so boastful, so prideful, and so on, and frankly, it's almost impossible for him to really keep up, just at least at this moment. His brother would tell him that if he doesn't find his own way, that he'll just fall behind. He can't just copy everything he does. He'll become a crutch. And Isagi would try his best to become his own person, would try his best to become his own player throughout this time. But it isn't until their very last tournament game in which he finally finds his way. And he finally finds his way to more or less just go on with becoming a football player. Both of them are strikers, and they're both amazing with their backs to the goal, but Isagi knows he needs to become something better than that, because he's not as good as his big brother at scoring around the goal. Yes, he is really good at doing it, but in comparison to his older brother, it's almost like it's night and day. There's no comparison. But what Isagi doesn't know is that this hill that he's climbing, this idea that he's not as good as his brother in terms of his back to his goal and scoring within the box with ease, well, that idea is kind of an alien one, because Shido or Ryosei Shido is literally the best at doing it. So it's kind of a weird comparison for him to make. But since he doesn't really know anything on the outside, it's not something for him to really think that much about. During this tournament game though, he would show off more skills than you can really think of. And he would use the vision that both of them have and the coordination they both have to a large extent to expand his game even more. He's able to score within the box relatively easily, but he doesn't really have the vision that his brother has. But to a large extent, his brother's vision isn't necessarily vision. It's as if it's all instinctual, and he's very, very good at playing just through his instinctual skills, and obviously his dominant physicality, in which they both do have. Isagi begins to expand what he wants to do throughout this time. He has really good spatial awareness, just like his brother, but he tries to utilize it in different ways to actually pass the ball. He feels that the threat of passing and the threat of being able to pass and score from a longer range is something that he needs to work on. In which, when he does basically crash toward the goal, his ability to pass out to a longer distance and have vision beyond just, well, his own goal is something that would be super effective, especially when playing with his brother, but frankly, playing without his brother as well. Because once he crashes, everybody begins to get sucked in, and he realizes that the goals on the edges, on the far edges, the far left and far right toward the corners, are pretty much wide open, and as long as they crash in deep enough, it's a free goal every single time. And he would easily set up Shido throughout this game for those type of goals, but also his normal goals as well. His big brother, Ryosei Shido, would easily score with obviously his back to the goal, but also sometimes just barreling down from the left or right side, in which his big brother, or Shido, would absolutely think it's insane that Yoichi is able to kind of see things like this. I mean, he has more or less this vision and spatial awareness himself, and his extreme spatial perception, but it's not really accounting for, well, Yoichi. It's not really accounting for him that much, at least what he's capable of. It's more or less accounting for the player's positions and less what his brother is capable of, because he kind of believed that his brother was capable of only the things that he could really do. That's just how it is. So Isagi would just try to come into his own throughout this game. He would try to adopt things that his big brother, Ryosei Shido, obviously is able to do, but he would try to adopt many other things as well. He wants to kind of make his own player out of himself. He knows that his brother has some insane technique, dominant physicality, aggressive dribbling, spatial awareness, reflexes, everything. And he knows that his brother is capable of some insane things on the field, but he also knows that he needs to be able to actually make something different. His brother, and one thing his brother really doesn't have, or he does have but not that much of, is kind of a distance shot in a way. And his brother he can shoot from distance, but he doesn't shoot from distance in a traditional way. And Isagi feels that if he combines the fact of traditional and also the creative style that the Shido brothers have been playing with, he might be even more deadly than he can imagine. But the main thing that's in his mind is playing it as if it's a team game. And of course, this would kind of put his big brother off a little bit, because he doesn't like the idea that he'd be helping someone else get their own goals. I mean, he doesn't care if he helps him get his own goals. Like, if, you know, if his little brother helps him score more goals, that's fine with him. But the idea that these other people are gonna get goals from him, that's kind of lame, and that he doesn't really like that. And frankly, his big brother would say that if he doesn't have the ego to just take it himself and score these goals and poach off of other players to find his own goals, to find his own glory, then, I mean, he doesn't think he's really maybe made out to be a striker. Maybe he should just be some sort of midfielder or something. In which this would tear down Isagi just a little bit. I mean, why would he say that? That's just messed up. I mean, he's trying to get better, expand off the skills that has already been presented to him, but now he's telling him that he should just not be a striker if he thinks this way, and that he should just not be a striker if he thinks that getting other people involved is important. And Isagi would be frustrated by this, would be pretty angry at his big brother, but he would just leave it at that. And eventually they would both get a letter, and this letter would be from some unknown training camp that they haven't heard about, in which Shido thinks this, or the older brother Shido, Ryosei Shido, would think this is a great idea, think this is fantastic. And just to cut in really quickly, I'm going to be referencing Isagi as obviously Isagi, but then Shido as Ryosei Shido, the older brother, or the one we know and we've met in the Blue Lock anime and manga, just to make things a little bit more simple. But with that said, I just wanted to make that quickly clear. Shido would kind of be excited about this. He would be excited to kind of show everyone what he's kind of capable of. Frankly, he knows that he's the best, and he knows that he's going to show everybody that he's hands down a freaking monster. So he knows that he'll be able to do some amazing things soon on the field in front of these so-called scouts or whatever, in which eventually when they would arrive at the auditorium, they would learn it's really actually not that simple. It's a little different. And the difference is the person running it is Jinpachi Ego. Jinpachi Ego is running one called Blue Lock. And basically his goal is to create the striker or the best striker in Japan, giving them basically a goal or this big goal in mind, and eventually putting them on the front of the national stage and showing off exactly what Blue Lock is capable of. In which Shido is absolutely thrilled to hear this, thinking that he's going to score so much and he's going to prove exactly what he's capable of. But just as they're standing there waiting for kind of Ego to finish up, Shido is kind of enthralled by this, so much so that he's just ready to go. He's just cranked up to the maximum. And Isagi would try to get him to calm down a little bit, but Shido would brush him off, saying that this isn't a place for him. He doesn't even know why he got invited in the first place. It must have been off of his own coattails. In which Shido would be kind of frustrated with his brother, saying that he doesn't want to master the skills that they were given by God himself, that they were given these skills, these superior technique and abilities that allow them to score goals so easily. But his brother doesn't want to be the striking duo that they truly should be. The striking duo that could more or less poach goals from anywhere in front of the goal. And it would be perfect. It would be insane. Imagine one Shido. There's two of them. It's impossible to stop. In which Isagi would be a perfect duo because he doesn't have an insane kind of superiority complex just like Shido does. And frankly, Isagi is a more calm version of Shido, a lot more calm, just not as good. At least that's in the eyes of Shido himself. But after a small conversation with the brothers, and after a conversation between them both, well, Isagi and Shido would walk through the doors that are presented to them, but quickly they would realize that they would be separated. And this would be kind of interesting. They'd be separated into a completely different building, in which Shido would say that there's levels to this game, and it seems like the creator of Blue Lock just knows that he's so much better than Isagi. Isagi hears this and thinks this is ridiculous. He thinks this is just absolutely dumb. There's no way that he's that far ahead of him, and there's no way that he's going to let his brother say these things. In which Isagi and his goal is now to see himself crushing Shido. He knows that he can stomp him, destroy him. But as Shido leaves, he leaves with a smile on his face. It's as if he knows that his brother is pissed, and he knows that his brother is angry with him. Because at the end of the day, this anger can be turned into strength, and this anger can be turned into him getting better. But Isagi would eventually walk into where he needs to go, and when he walks in, he sees a bunch of people that he has no idea who they are. He sees one Bachira, Kunagami, Chigiri, Gagamaru, Raichi, and many, many more. And frankly, he kind of stands there, not really thinking too much about it, and he has his Blue Lock clothing on. And he would kind of begin speaking to everybody, and everybody will talk about where they've come from and kind of like what they do and what they're capable of. But eventually a ball would drop from the ceiling, and it would be Jinpachi Ego on the screen once again. Jinpachi Ego would speak to all of them, telling them all that, well, they have their first challenge ahead of them, and that challenge is right Now, the challenge consists of it being tag. They're all confused. Tag, I mean, that's kind of weird. I mean, like, why would they all play tag? But they learn that it's with a football. And the way it works is that if someone gets hit with the ball, that they are deemed as it. And if you're deemed as it, then, well, if you don't get the ball away from you or hit someone else at the time of the timer hitting 0 after the 2 minutes and 16 seconds are up, then you get eliminated. It's that simple. In which Jinpachi Iko would start the timer, and frankly, it would be pretty quick to someone kicking the ball, because immediately someone starts as it. And they would kick the ball around for a little bit, but eventually Iragashi would see someone sleeping on the ground, and he would think to himself that, well, he'll just kick the ball at them. But just as he thinks this and thinks about this, well, Isagi would come out of nowhere, kicking the ball straight at Iragashi's face, pegging him directly in the face as it slams into him and rolls off toward one Kira. As it rolls off to Kira, Kira would back up. He would move away from the ball as if he feared it entirely. And Isagi, I mean, he would get this feeling, this rushing feeling that covers him entirely, and he's not sure why. But the main feeling is very similar to the one of anger. The one that he sees his brother, this cockiness and anger that fills his brother all the time. Maybe it's competitiveness, but it frustrates him seeing that someone was going to cheap shot this other person that was just sleeping here. Yeah, the guy shouldn't be sleeping, and he's kind of stupid for laying there in the first place, but this would just frustrate him. And then now he sees Kira standing there like an idiot, standing there staring at the ball. Isagi would go charging forward, and it's as if he's so fast. Everyone is shocked seeing him move, and he kicks the ball directly toward Kira's face, and he hits him right in the jaw. As he hits him in the jaw, Kira would stagger back, falling to the ground as the ball would roll, and Bachira would eventually wake up. He would sigh and ask what all the commotion is about, and Isagi would look toward him, but for some reason, this wouldn't frustrate him. It seems as if Bachira has some sort of aspect to him that he kind of likes. Maybe it's his fire for football glimmering through his tired persona at this moment. But Kira, being that he's still on the ground, kind of takes a while to recover and tries to get back to his feet. Kira would line up and try to kick the ball once again back to someone else, but it wouldn't be that simple. He would try to get back at Isagi, trying to kick it toward Isagi, but luckily enough, Isagi's able to recover and kick the ball directly back toward Kira. There's no fear in Isagi at this moment. The ball goes hurtling back toward Kira, and it would hit him directly in the gut. And everybody believes that this is kind of just bullying. Why is he bullying Kira this badly? I mean, he could kick it towards someone else, and eventually the timer would hit 0, and the game would be completely over. Because at the end of the day, there was very little time in general, so Kira would eventually be eliminated, and Isagi would kind of sigh, wishing that he could have eliminated both of them. And as he thinks about this, he realizes that he's slowly but surely becoming just like his older brother. The fire that his brother holds within him, it's as if Blue Lock itself is bringing it out, and all it took was being surrounded by other strikers. And it's not that these other strikers are making him super competitive, it's the fact that some of them just don't glimmer the light of being a striker, and frankly, they're not even worthy of being a striker. They're the furthest thing from worthy of being a striker. And this would frustrate Isagi, very much so. And frankly, it would just kind of annoy him at the end of the day, because frankly, Isagi wants to see the best out of strikers, and he wants to see the best coordination that they all can have. He does still have a team kind of team-based mindset. He's not as solo as his brother, but at the same time, the fact that he just saw someone stand there and just want to kick someone in the face with a football while they were sleeping just made him angry. It's as if his ego kind of is leading more toward a team environment, but maybe his anger is kind of misplaced, at least to a certain extent. But still, he passes through, Kira does not, and the rest of the team kind of just stands there in complete utter shock. Jinpachi Ego would speak about a couple things, about this ego, about Kira not being more or less ready for Blue Lock, and so on and so forth. And that, frankly, they all have to somehow work together as a team of 11 strikers. And he knows that this will be difficult, but he says that in some instances they will thrive off each other and they will have success off of each other. But in other instances, they won't. They will suffer, destroy each other, and betray each other. This is Blue Lock, and this is what needs to happen to find the peak of everyone standing here now. In which everyone is shocked to hear this. I mean, most of them have come off of team environments, so the fact is, this is far different. But there's one person within there that is excited at this non-teamwork environment, and that's one Bachira. Bachira thinks about the abilities that Isagi has, that Yoichi Shido has, and it just excites Bachira to the most insane extent, thinking that he might have not found a monster, but he found a demon, that this is some freak of nature, and frankly, it's insane that he even ran into him. He's so excited. And this would enthrall him for this next game, and the first game for Team Z, in which it would be explained that they're going to be taking on Team X, in which Isagi has kind of this identity disorder right now. He doesn't know if he wants to be the striker that his brother is, more or less lead everyone to a win, because he knows that his abilities will definitely help out everybody on the field, but would also allow him to score as many goals as possible, because he knows that if he scores a bunch of goals, then he'll actually be guaranteed more or less to the next round, even if his team doesn't win that much. But he could try a mix of both of their styles. Maybe he could find a good sweet spot between more or less finding his own goals and only scoring on his own, and also maybe kind of getting other people involved. And frankly, this might even gain more for him than against him. Maybe. He's not 100% sure, but the team or the game against Team X may show some issues with his style of play that he would like to play. And that's mainly because the coordination of his team is absolutely horrendous. It's almost impossible for him to do a set play at all, and almost impossible for him to get anybody else involved. And it's more or less because of the reckless play that everybody is involved in. I mean, literally, it's all these people just running and trying to steal, trying to gain, trying to grab the ball, trying to get the ball in general. And frankly, it's just kind of overwhelming in all. So it's kind of just frustrating at that. But luckily enough, Isagi's able to kind of shut down the big monster and the big person that's going to be the main issue, and that's Bato. He's able to use his physicality to kind of block out Bato from making the plays he normally makes. And even if he scores a couple goals, frankly, Isagi would kind of get a rap on trying to stop him. And eventually, his team would kind of turn it around. Being down 2-0, they have to come up big here. Because at the end of the day, it seems like they're just uncoordinated and unable to do anything. But luckily enough, with the stop of Bato, they can start swinging things more in their direction. In which quickly, there's a realization that both Bachira and Isagi are a match made in heaven. A quick pass to Bachira would lead to a beautiful pass from Bachira back to Isagi right in front of the goal. And as Isagi is midair, he would get this overwhelming feeling. This feeling of joy, but at the same time of this pit in his stomach. This idea that all he is his brother. And after he would score the goal, whipping his body into the left side and kicking the ball within the net, and everybody's kind of standing there in complete awe at the awareness that he had, the ability to box out and the ability to score with not even really looking at the goal. I mean, he kind of just sits there, not even that happy. He would sit there thinking that maybe his brother was right. Maybe his will to be a striker needs to be here, needs to be kind of like his brother. Search for the goal, find it, and devour it. But he sits there thinking that's all it is, really? Is that really what football is to him? He doesn't get the excitement that his brother does. He doesn't have the passion his brother does to hunt for goals like he's some lion in the forest or some lion in the jungle. He's not the same as his brother. He's different. And he doesn't get the motivation that his brother has to do exactly what his brother does. And now that they're up 2-1, I mean, there's a realization for Bachira and the team seemingly to feed Isagi, that it seems like he's their wild card, and quickly that would become apparent. Bachira, Kunigami, Isagi, they would all kind of work together to just hunt for their goal, and quickly Isagi would realize how easy it is for him to score this goal just off tempo with his aggressive style, and frankly with his superior technique that is all very similar to his brother. They've been playing together for a while, so he's kind of a carbon copy, just slightly worse. That's why he was trying to find new ways of playing. This isn't his way of playing. This is different. And yes, he does want to find his own goal. Don't get me wrong. He still is an egoist. He still wants to hunt for his goal, but he believes that there's different and better ways for him to find not only his goal, but honestly find other ways of getting better in football. And this, doing the same thing as his brother, will just keep him behind the pitch, at least behind the pitch in terms of trying to beat his brother. He thinks that he needs to amp something up. He needs to be able to create his own goal, maybe off the dribble, maybe create his own goal kind of from a distance. But for now, he'll settle with this, because at the end of the day, Blue Lock is a do or die situation. And Isagi knows that he doesn't want to die on this field. So when Bachira would find him over and over and over again, he would score goal after goal as long as it's within the box. Double team, triple team, it doesn't matter. Isagi can feel this adrenaline rush, but at the same time, the adrenaline rush of scoring a goal would make him feel guilty in an odd way. Would make him feel as if he's just submitting to the idea of exactly what his brother said, that he's like him, that he needs to hunt, find, and use their God-given talent to score goals, to be this goal poacher, right 6 yards in the box or kind of in the penalty area, and frankly, just utilize passes, loose balls, and just pounce on them to score over and over and over again. And even Isagi would kind of channel part of this when Bachira would get toward the box and he would kind of steal the ball from him and score once again, lighting up the scoreboard to a large extent, putting them up 6-2. It's as if that 2-0 scoreline was absolutely nothing now. It didn't even exist. It was non-existent to where they were at this point. Isagi would kind of feel this rush of not only passion, but guilt fall over him. Because at the end of the day, all he was doing was proving his brother right. He needed to find something within himself, find something that is different from his brother. And eventually, toward the end of the game, he would see that one thing. He would see it. It would be a weird thing, a very interesting thing, but it's not like the spatial awareness they're normally used to. Shido's, or his big brother, Ryosei Shido, would use spatial awareness, and it would be more geared to the goal or towards the goal at all times. But this would be perfect for his own scoring abilities and perfect for Isagi's scoring abilities as well. But this is different. without even hesitation, Isagi would see things that many people wouldn't, and he would begin seeing them, just glimpses, as his vision widens beyond just the goal, beyond just wanting to score. He thought about this. His awareness around the goal, just like his brother, is absolutely insane. His spatial awareness is amazing. But as he's sprinting down the field, being up 6-2, he begins to sense things even crazier. When he gets the ball in the penalty area, everything opens up and he sees multiple people. He sees Kunigami, he sees Bachira, he sees so many others and their potential goals. If he just, instead of turning around facing the goal and scoring, he passes one time, they could score as well, so easily. And for the last goal to give them 7 points, he would utilize it, but to its smallest extent. He would kind of get the ball, gather it, and he would see Kunigami. But even Kunigami could barely react to it, but a pass would come soaring in, and Kunigami would be standing there on an island by himself. He would shoot the goal and score. Everyone standing there thinking they just saw something truly amazing. They just watched one of the most lethal strikers they've ever seen score goal after goal after goal, and it felt as if he was becoming this demonic monster with wall in front of the goal, in the box or in the penalty area. But he just showed something they didn't even know was part of his arsenal, kind of his ability to kick out, more or less as if he was some basketball player driving to the hoop as hard as possible and kicking it out to a 3-point shooter. He did the exact same thing, but this time around he posted up, and his threat level was so high through the roof that everyone collapsed, and it left someone wide open for an even easier shot than one that he would have taken in front of the goal, a shot that was almost impossible to miss. And Isagi, he realizes now what he can do and what he's capable of. He's not only capable of finding his own goals, he's not only capable of scoring with his back to the goal in the penalty and in the box. He can pass perfectly out of the box or out of the penalty area for goals that could be scored so much easier than the tough shots that he takes. And frankly, this is the evolution he's been seeing and wanting. An evolution to see goals not only for himself, but for others as well. But that is for the next part of What If Isagi and Shido Were Brothers. And after the first game would finally be over, and Isagi has finally awakened the new version of football he wants to play for himself, he's now ready for the game planning and just flat out ready for the next match. The next match would actually be against Team Y, and Team Y would pose a couple issues, but those issues would more or less be kind of this odd and weird playstyle of a single set play. They would have one Okawa and Nico kind of set each other up for a goal, but more like Nico is setting up Okawa. Now, this would be a pretty simple playstyle, nothing too over the top and nothing too fancy. And frankly, even though it's nothing crazy and nothing fancy, he actually has a good amount of success, at least off the rip. He's able to pass the ball deep and pass the ball pretty easily to score their first goal. But quickly Isagi can tell that it's all about shutting Nico and Okawa down. But quickly after they score their first goal as well, being that it's an easy setup leading from Bachira to Isagi in the box or in the penalty area, he would easily score the first goal. He would set himself up basically to draw the defense in. But after scoring that goal, it seems as if Team Y just wants to play keep away. They continuously just pass the ball back and forth and back and forth. They don't really want to even deal with anything else. They literally just want to do keep away, which does confuse Isagi just a little bit, because at the end of the day, he wants to play football. He doesn't want to watch someone pass the ball around kind of stupidly. And this would frustrate him just a little bit, and kind of that version of himself, the older brother version of himself, the Shido side of him, obviously, would obviously show, and he would begin blitzing the team. And this is the fastest they've really seen Isagi run in a while, if not ever. And he begins to try and steal the ball from them. And eventually he would steal the ball, and he would take it himself and immediately dribble through with some aggressive dribbling and score once again, putting them up 2-1, in which now Team Y realizes that they do need to score. But scoring at this moment is not going to be easy. Frankly, it's going to be one of the most difficult things now that they're going to go through, because Nico is now completely keened in on in terms of who Isagi needs to guard. He knows now that everything's going to flow through Nico, so he knows everything that he needs to do at this moment is to more or less set up his own team, is to shut Nico down. And with his just strength, raw athleticism, and frankly all of the attributes he has, he's able to guard Nico as if it were nothing, and he takes him down exactly how he thought he would be able to, and he was able to steal the ball on multiple occasions and obviously set up multiple people for multiple goals. But their idea of playing keep away and more or less trying to keep the score down is kind of a way for Team Z to not score like crazy, at least at the moment. The fact is, I mean, when you kind of play keep away for that long, it doesn't matter how good a team is, eventually the score will kind of plateau out. So yes, Team Z would come out with the victory, and Isagi would be able to get some goals for himself and also goals for some other people. But yeah, I mean, it kind of flops in terms of the scoreboard. It would end up just game ending around 4-1, which is kind of not as impressive as Isagi would want it to be. But at the end of the day, a win is still a win. So does it really matter at the end of the day? Not really. Isagi's team would win, and frankly, he would show off even more what he's capable of, but this team wasn't a team that would really draw much out of them. There wasn't that much aggressiveness, and frankly, their game plan was an extremely passive one, so it kind of ended exactly how it probably should have ended in terms of what they were truly capable of. But with that said, Isagi would look forward to the very next game, because that's all they could really do. Look in the future for the next game to come. The next game to come would be against Team W, the same team that has the Wanama twins, in which the Wanama twins are an amazing duo, very similar to the Shido brothers, but obviously him and his brother are not even in the same area because of their difference in stats and abilities at the moment of the scouting that Jinpachi Ego did. But even Ego knows to a certain extent that their separation could only mean for betterment of themselves, and frankly, they might become an even more dynamic duo due to the fact that they're completely separated. But with that said, Isagi would kind of be able to take on the Wanama twins for the sole factor of, or just be able to easily take them on through the sole factor of knowing how these duos work. Because at the end of the day, he personally was in a tandem duo, so he's able to kind of read it pretty well. And when the team W tries to take this into their own hands, tries to more or less utilize their own skills against Team Z, it's pretty apparent that they kind of fall behind to a certain extent. Yeah, the Wanama twins may have some skills and may be able to have some capabilities, but overall, it's just not it. Isagi and his team would struggle a slight bit initially with the defense in terms of covering the Wanama twins, but once they get started, and once Isagi cuts off one of the Wanama twins, completely alienating them, well, it's pretty obvious that it's almost impossible for them to score, in which they would score one goal, but Isagi would follow up with a goal of his own, and Bachira would as well. Bachira and Isagi would create a pretty insane tandem as well because of the dribbling and passing ability that Bachira has. The ability to get the ball into the box and eventually Isagi scoring with ease would kind of be an insane combo for them personally. But even with that, he also has the ability to kick it back out to Kunigami, their long-range scorer, in which he does that on occasion to kind of keep the other team on their toes and keep the other team guessing exactly what he's going to do. They can't just triple team him within the box or try to put a bunch of players on him and swarm him and overwhelm him, because guess what? He could easily just kick the ball back out. And when they try to team up and cover Kunigami, his strength and his just body type is just unbelievably able to kind of shut down anything that others are capable of. Isagi would easily find different and more effective ways of scoring goals over and over and over again, and it seems as if Team W is just continuously falling behind, goal after goal, and at halftime it would already be 5-1. And it would be pretty impressive at what Isagi is able to get out of this team, especially because, well, he wasn't really expected to be this type of player. Yes, it's different, and Isagi decided this on his own, but at the end of the day, he wasn't going to be this type of player, or wasn't really set up to be this type of player. But now he is. He's one that is selfish and wants to seek for his own goals, of course, but he knows that he could also set up many other players on his team, more or less to score goals and have success. And that's just flat out the truth. Isagi knows this, and he wants to utilize every bit of it to his advantage, which is a perfect player, someone that could draw in the defense, especially a striker that could draw in the defense and utilize his own skills to not only score but also kick out to anybody that needs to be kicked out to, is absolutely insane, because he's a threat to score a goal but also a threat to give someone else set up for a goal, which is absolutely lethal. And after halftime, Isagi would continue with the domination through his sheer physicality and obviously their coordination, or at least somewhat coordination as a team. But toward the end of this game, he would actually see glimpses of somebody else. And it seems as if they got motivated from seeing all of this and seeing the success that Isagi and his team was already having, and that would be Chiguri. He did speak to Chiguri a little bit, but he wouldn't speak that much to him. He had no real intentions of trying to convince him to play nice, but it seems as if once Chiguri realized that all of this stuff that is happening right now is made from Isagi, and on top of that, there's no way that they're going to be dropping out anytime soon, he might as well release all of his anger out on the Wanama twins, in which if he wants to release all his anger out on them and he wants to show them what he's all about, he needs his speed. So he forgets all of it. He tries to throw away all his fears of hurting himself once again, tearing his ACL once again, and he steps into a brand new world for himself, sprinting forward. Chiguri is now racing down the field, and Isagi sees him giving it to Bachira, as Bachira would set him up for a beautiful pass. He would score a goal, and the Wanama twins would honestly fear what they're seeing. I mean, look at what's going on. Chiguri is back, and his speed is back, but they have these dynamic players that make them seem unstoppable. It doesn't even seem fair that they're all on the same team. But, of course, the reality of this is that it all took a meshing of all of them to truly make them great. Because if they were all uncoordinated, if they were all refusing to work together, and they were kind of simplifying the ideas of scoring goals to basically how a normal team would score goals, then, well, their team would be nowhere near as good as it is right now. And that's just the reality of the entire situation. Everybody simplifies things way too much. But what happens when talent overcomes everything? It doesn't matter if it's super simple in terms of what they're able to do, and it doesn't matter if only 3 players are able to kind of coordinate and work properly together when you have talent like the next team they're about to face. The next team they're about to face is also 3-0 in in basically their record. 3-0. Yeah, it's Team V. Team V is absolutely insane. And yes, both of them are up 3-0 in terms of record, but doesn't mean that Isagi and anybody else wants to just let this one go off easy. They want to actually try their absolute best, because if it's true that this team is special and extremely lethal, they want to see what they're truly capable of. In which that's exactly what Isagi's going to do. He wants to see what they're really capable of. And before the match would even begin, though, they would actually meet for kind of this in-between dinner, but it was kind of on accident. Isagi would meet the three main players that are on that team, being that of Zentetsu, Ryo, and Nagi. And they would meet, and he would meet Nagi, and he would absolutely despise Nagi. He would think that it's ridiculous. This idea that this guy is so lazy, but supposedly he's such a good player, and it kind of annoys him. Yeah, he's good unconditionally as well. Like, he didn't have to train super hard to be super good. His genetics just helped him out so much. But at the same time, he still loves this game of football. So much so that he even dealt with his psychotic brother and played with him, and even found a way to enjoy playing the game with his brother, even though he's kind of a psychopath. But still, he would watch as kind of Isagi, or excuse me, he would watch as Nagi just like sits there and says that he's bored of football and that he doesn't care and that this and that, he would rather sleep and do this or that. And this would annoy the absolute heck out of Isagi. I mean, obviously, this would just annoy the hell out of him, because he's just over this idea that Nagi thinks that, oh, Blue Lock's just a joke and that it doesn't matter anyways. And it seems as if he hasn't been taking this thing seriously at all. So he tells Nagi that he's going to make sure that he is taking it very seriously once he shows them how useless they are while they're on the field. Isagi would storm off and he would get ready for the next game. And when the game against Team V would begin, let's just say this is absolutely insane. A new version of Isagi, one very similar or more similar to Shido than anything else, would kind of show out. Because off the rip, they would score a goal, but he didn't realize that this would be one hell of a shootout. Because Isagi would immediately score his first goal via Bachira's beautiful pass, and he would score with some aggression that even Bachira hasn't seen before. But right after that, Isagi would more or less see as Nagi and Ryo's connection would be absolutely insane themselves. And frankly, that's just the truth of it. Ryo and Nagi are absolutely insane together. And when he sets up a pass to Nagi and scores a goal, well, immediately Isagi realizes that he's going to have to mark Nagi and shut him the hell down. But right after it becomes 1-1, Isagi tells his team, that they're going to make this a absolute bloodshed, and he's going to make sure that they don't even give up a single inch from here on out. If they score, we score, and it's going to be like that all game long. In which they were right. That's exactly what happens all game long, at least to the fact of if they score, we score. Isagi wants to make sure it all goes their direction and all goes their way, so immediately he puts himself into the forefront, in which Bachira and him make for the insane tandem that would absolutely cut through Nagi's team's defense or Team V's defense. And it would actually be insane what they're doing. And Bachira would never see someone so aggressive in his life. He's never seen a striker this aggressive. It actually blows his mind to an extent. It's pretty crazy in his opinion. But even with that said, Isagi finds his goal, and eventually Nagi would find another one as well. Because at the end of the day, it's really hard to adjust to Nagi's kind of height, ability to control the ball, and so on and so forth. But after a couple more goals, Isagi would finally find his way and finally stop Nagi from scoring. And eventually, his aggressiveness and his ability to kind of just overpower Nagi would be the way that he needs to stop him. unable to make him or allow him to make moves off of his ball control, Isagi would completely lock down Nagi to the point that Nagi himself would be forced to evolve to the furthest extent possible. And his evolution may make for some crazy tricks and some crazy moments, but at the end of the day, it seems as if he still isn't enough. Nagi is still not enough to more or less stop anything. It seems as if Nagi realizes that Isagi's more or less strength is kind of just overwhelming at this point. It seems as if even though he's able to use his ball control and kind of maneuver at insane ways and try to bait Isagi into certain directions, it seems as if it doesn't even really matter at the end of the day. It seems that Isagi's not falling for it. His reactions are way too good, and it seems like his spatial awareness for defending is only increasing over and over and over again. Is actually insane. Isagi is actually straight up adapting to what Nagi's able to do, and it seems like he's even more or less kind of widening his own horizons in terms of what he's capable of outside of what compared to what his brother is capable of. Shido, don't get me wrong, can defend, but now Isagi's kind of bridging the gap even further using his physicality and his spatial awareness that he now understands even greater, maybe even greater than his brother, but less of a more striker mentality awareness to the largest extent so that he can guard and just completely shut down Nagi. And the complete elimination of Nagi from this game is more or less what occurs. Zantetsu may get a goal here and there, and Isagi's team would continue to just lap Team V, leading them to a kind of embarrassing scoreline for Team V. It seemed as if they didn't even have defense, and the game would end about around a 8-5 scoreline, and this would be embarrassing for Team V because it never felt as if they were ever pulling away. It really never felt that even they had a chance at the end of the day, which kind of frustrates Reo, but also frustrates Nagi to a certain extent. Nagi really wants to get better now, and frankly, the motivation that he has is all from Isagi. Isagi is just a different type of player, a player that plays so oddly in a way, but at the same time, he's so interested in what he's capable of. But that's not much to think about at the moment, because they're not even sure if they'll be able to even work together or even play together or play against each other in the near future. Being that all the games are now finished, Jinpachi Ego now begins his speech to everybody there currently. He tells them all that it's really simple, that this was made for them to learn exactly what this whole striker thing was all about, what they could do to evolve to becoming greater strikers, and on top of that, what they could have done to work as a team of 11 strikers. But obviously, whoever won and whoever got through kind of figured it out. But obviously, there's also some other people that got through just based on goals, which that could be some people that will be revealed very soon. Ego would tell them all, though, that it's now time for them to actually train. So everyone there goes through a very serious and very intense regimen to get ready for the next part of the selections. The second selection would actually entail them kind of being more or less solo or individuals. They're going to be scaling and figuring out what they can do individually, at least to a certain extent. And after all the hard training, working hard and trying to elevate their bodies to a new level, it's now time basically for them to step into the next selection. The very beginning of the next selection is the definition of an individual performance. They start with something known as Blue Lock Man, which is a holographic goalie that seems to be more or less this absolute and undeniable adaptive goalie that will continuously get better and better throughout their training, But at the end of the day, what they have to do is actually score 100 goals in 90 minutes. Isagi thinks that this is a pretty fun thing to do, and he finds some new ways for him to score some of these goals, and he does it really quickly. And at the end of the day, he's able to do this extremely fast because of the evolution he's gone through throughout this time. He's expanded his range, his ability to see and do certain things. So even if he's not scoring that much within the box, it's actually still pretty easy for him to score anywhere else. And his absolute strength is able to carry him through this and thread the needle on every single shot he has against Blue Lock Man. After it is all said and done though, he walks through those doors, and when he walks through those doors, he gets this rush of excitement, this idea that he can now take on so many different people. Because at the end of the day, he came here with his brother and he hasn't even seen him yet. So there might be a chance that he can face his brother in the near future. As he looks around, he actually sees a decent amount of strikers currently there. And he would eventually see Nagi and Reo standing there as well, but eventually someone from behind would jump on him, and that would be Bachira. Meguru Bachira would speak with him for a little bit, asking if he wants to team up, and of course Isagi wants to. The chemistry that they have together is extremely good, and his passing ability and his ability to kind of get it within the box for an automatic goal is something that is kind of freakish. Now with that said, the decision for the third player would need to be made, and their decision would actually come easier than you would think, because one actual Nagi would walk over and ask if, well, Isagi wants to join Reo and him, in which obviously Isagi would say that he can't, that he's obviously in the same team as, well, Bachira, that he can't just leave him, in which Bachira says that at the end of the day it is his choice, but he tells him once again that they're a duo. He doesn't want to leave Bachira behind by any means, in which that would be pretty apparent and pretty obvious, so he wouldn't do that. But Nagi would then say that it's fine, that he then asks if he can join them. Reo would be confused and wonder why he wants to do this, why would he leave him, in which, of course, he would tell him or tell them that, or tell Reo more specifically, that he just wants to know what football is like with Isagi. I mean, it seems as he's created an even greater monster in Bachira, and it feels as if now he can maybe make a even greater player out of Nagi. And Nagi is more or less very convinced of this and just wants to play with Isagi and Bachira extremely badly, and that's exactly what he'll get. He'll be allowed on the team, and the three of them would walk through those doors. But the three that they would be facing down is a team that they wouldn't really expect. And frankly, nobody would expect at the end of the day, because all three of these people were unknown to them, because they haven't seen anyone like this or anybody or any people like this in general. And those people that they run into are actually some of the top players in Blue Lock, being that of Rin Itoshi, Aru, and Tokumitsu. And these are some pretty interesting figures, one of them being kind of extremely timid and shy and unsure of himself, one that thinks that everybody, or that he is super glamorous and that's what the type of football he wants, and the other one is stoic. But he does have a number one on his shoulder, and this intrigues Isagi to a large extent. He's very interested in taking on this person and seeing what he is truly capable of. Maybe this will evolve him to a larger extent as well, something that he's interested in as to a large extent too. So he challenges the team of Rin, and Isagi's team would take them on. And quickly he would realize the absolute fear that Rin has been putting into people for a long time, and he's sure that he's had success for a long time as well, because on the field they would get Shido or Isagi, obviously Yuichi Shido, Isagi's team would get a quick goal, but Rin would just respond with kicking the ball immediately off a kickoff. Rin would see things that many others wouldn't, and he would be able to kind of predict things unusually. But at the same time, Rin might have ran into the worst team he possibly could have, in Bachira and Isagi, because they're not predictable at all. And Nagi seems to be absolutely unpredictable in terms of evolution. So Rin has a lot to keep up with, and quickly he realizes that it's almost impossible to stop Isagi once he gets past the penalty area. Once the ball comes in, it's impossible to stop him. Even when they put Aru on him to kind of use him for a bigger body, it seems as if Isagi has an ability to kind of section him off entirely. And as they go for the next goal, and as Isagi goes for his next goal, Rin would collapse on him. But just as he collapses, he does something unpredictable, at least to Rin at this moment. Isagi seems like a person that doesn't play for the team, that he would just score over and over again, but quickly he would realize that to not be the truth, because once he collapses, he makes a beautiful tap pass out to Nagi, allowing Nagi to score as well. Rin sees this, and he's pretty impressed, but also frustrated. He didn't think that this guy was all that, and now it seems like he's threatening to stop Rin in his tracks, in which he takes this personally. Rin would then go up and score multiple goals, and figuring out a defensive strategy pretty quickly against Isagi's team, putting them up 4-2 eventually, in which Isagi would kind of be frustrated by this, and he would be so frustrated to the point that he would find his own goal in a very unorthodox way. Rin can't stop him, Aru can't stop him, and frankly, he's just using his anger and just obscene strength, even against people like Tokumitsu, to just power his way through, aggressively scoring. Now, it's about keening in on Itoshi Rin. How is he supposed to stop him? And is there even a chance that he can stop Itoshi Rin, at least from scoring the final goal? Well, you'll have to find out if Isagi's team can overcome this 4-3 deficit in the next and final part of What If Isagi and Shido Were Brothers. They are down 4-3. Isagi needs to find a way to stop the one and only Itoshi Rin, the brother of the prodigy of Japan. Now, he hasn't been able to stop him this entire game, and frankly, it doesn't look like he's going to be able to even slow him down. But he'll need to somehow find a way to do just that. He'll need to find a way to slow down Itoshi Rin, because if he doesn't, well, his team will fall, and they'll lose one of their players, if that's, well, Nagi or Bachira. He doesn't want to lose either of them, so he begins to try and guard Rin. But even Rin can tell that his defense is far different than it was before. It seems as if, well, Isagi is using his aggressiveness, his body, and his body type in general to more or less actually control the pace of more or less Rin's dribbling. He continues to control this pace over and over and over again as he tries to get him off tempo, get Rin to make a mistake, and eventually he would do just that. Rin would make a mistake, and once he does, Isagi would be there to capitalize off of it. Immediately, Isagi would be dashing toward the ball, poking it free as it bounces straight up in the air. Out of nowhere, Nagi would come jumping in, and he would gather it, getting in front of Aru. Of course, he would gather it completely as he would get it down to the field to Bachira. It looks like they can score. Bachira would then out-dribble Tokumitsu, but Tokumitsu is right on his tail, so he does a beautiful tap pass toward the middle of the field, and the one person waiting there is Isagi. But Rin is right there stalking and ready to capitalize. He dives toward Isagi, more or less getting on top of him pretty quickly, and is about to steal the ball. But Isagi would quickly shift his weight, and he would move Rin out of the way, gathering it, and as he gathers it, he would pop it back up, and it would look very Nagi-like. He would get it to his other foot, and immediately kick it with the back of his heel, slamming it into the goal. And let's just say, Rin is standing there in complete shock. He doesn't even know what to think, know what to say. They are now tied 4-4. But Rin, well, Rin's not done evolving either. Rin gets the ball and he begins to set up a play that will take the game over forever. Isagi continues his aggressive defensive style, trying to stop Rin, putting the pressure on him. But using the height of Aru, it seems like they're able to get the ball down the field toward the area that Rin could easily score. And as they get the ball down there, Nagi and Bachira try and guard their respective people, but the body types that they're going against and the physicality they are going against as well is something that is almost impossible to stop in a long drawn out game, in which this is exactly what it is. Isagi tries to recover, tries to stop one of them from scoring, Tokumitsu actually looking for a goal himself, but Isagi would come out of nowhere, popping the ball back up, and he looks over, but there's one person waiting for the ball to fall down to the ground, and that's Rin. Rin is waiting for the ball to fall to the ground, and as it does, let's just say, it doesn't fall very ceremoniously for Isagi himself, because Rin would get the ball and he would shoot his final goal and they would win 5-4. Isagi would be completely shocked at this, standing there, and he would think to himself that he wasn't enough to evolve. His evolution of defense wasn't enough to stop what Rin was doing. But as he's standing there, Bachira would walk over to him and tap him on the back, telling him that he did some amazing things, greater than he's ever seen before. Nagi saying the same thing, that it was truly impressive and truly insane. And frankly, they all know who's going to get picked. And of course, Rin would step up, saying that they don't get a choice, both of his teammates. He wants him. He can tell that they can make some sort of chemical reaction, and that he wants to make sure that he doesn't fall victim to Blue Lock. And on top of that, he wants to have him watch as he becomes the greatest striker alive. And Rin is confident that he could be better, way better than Isagi. Now, with that said, Isagi would join the team of Rin, and frankly, the team of Rin, Isagi, Tokumitsu, and Aru would be practically unstoppable. And even when they would go against some pretty strong teams, a team of, well, Bachira, Nagi, Chigiri, and even Baro, it doesn't necessarily matter. Not having Isagi on their team is a giant kick to the face, because Isagi is an absolute monster, and frankly, he creates some extremely talented players. So yes, they would take them on. Chuguri being better than what he would normally would be. Same thing with Bachira and Nagi, but at the same time, the matchups they have are just not suitable to take down the team of Rin, especially when basically Rin and Isagi link up perfectly. When they link up to the largest extent that Rin's long-range threat and Isagi's threat of not only scoring within the box and also the penalty area, but also being able to pass out of it and set people up for insane goals, that combo, that chemical reaction is something that nobody ever would be capable of stopping, or at least that's what it feels like. And even Rin gets a slight smirk on his face because it's odd. It's odd the satisfaction he's getting from playing with a player like Isagi, someone that isn't necessarily this massively egotistical player, but this person that is willing to create this insane chemical reaction for not only him, but for his team. Isagi might have an ego. Of course, most of them do, and most of them, of course, have one. But Isagi's ego doesn't let him more or less affect the team to the point where he's stealing or causing bad things to happen, kind of like what his brother would be doing. Shido on this team wouldn't work. But the combo of Rin and Isagi as a team is insane. Almost unspeakably unstoppable. Isagi would score multiple goals and Rin would follow up with some of his own, and they would take down the team of Nagi, Baro, Bachira, and Chigiri in only a 5-1 scoreline. Isagi would take Bachira, and, well, it would be pretty apparent who they would want to take, being that Bachira is absolutely insanely good with Isagi himself, and their chemical reaction is also just outlandish too. So yes, the chemical reaction between him and Rin is insane, but Bachira and Isagi have been playing together for a while as well, way longer than he has with Rin. So their chemical reaction combined with Rin would be absolutely freakish. But now that they have 5 players, they wonder what's to come next, what's going to happen next, and what's their next challenge. And their next challenge would be something of absolute insane proportions, and that would be the game against the World 5. And this game would put a lot of things into reality. For starters, they would take on the World 5, but Rin would be extremely confident that he can smash them to bits. At the end of the day, he begins to say that he's basically going to turn this so-called sightseeing trip into an absolute bloodbath, as if he's about to destroy them and make them cry all the way back to their own countries. But quickly, it's realized that it's not that simple. Rin would score the first goal of the game, but quickly after, Rin would get absolutely dismantled and a goal would be scored really fast. Isagi would find his own goal a little deeper into the game, and this would be a pretty impressive one, being that he is really strong, and also his ability to kind of score at will within the box kind of surprises the World 5. So he's able to pick up maybe 1 or 2 goals, but they would still lose 5-3, and it would be pretty like dominant by the World 5. It wouldn't even be that close, because at the end of the day, the speed that they have, the accuracy, the power, it's kind of just overwhelming overall, and it's kind of a reality check for these Blue Lock strikers, because at the end of the day, you are not invincible. You are the furthest thing from invincible. None of these players are perfect players, and none of them are going to more or less win no matter what. That's what they needed to realize during this session, that there's always someone better than you, and there's always someone that you should strive to be better than, which is a pretty good lesson overall, because the World 5 is something different. The World 5 is made up of some absolute killers, and there's a reason for it. I mean, they are 5 of the world's best players, but once all of it is said and done, Isagi and his team, or the combination of Rin, Bachira, Isagi, and so on, would await the next event. But when that quote-unquote next event would arrive, he would see as everybody would walk in, everybody that he saw before, people like Nagi, people like Chigiri, they would all walk in, and eventually he would see one other person, his brother. He would see Shido. As he walks in, he says that it's good to see that his little brother isn't a complete waste of space and was able to make it through, but he does have their blood running through his veins, so it only makes sense. But as Isagi begins to speak with him, he would look behind Shido and then be curious, where is Kunigami? And everybody would be shocked by this as well, and Shido would be like, well, it seems as if the hero fell to me, and it seems like I'm the villain of his story. So he had to go back down. In which Shido would say that he hopes that his little brother isn't disappointed. Did he really want his big brother to just leave like that? And Isagi would get face to face with Shido and tell him that he's no longer the player that he once was, and that if they get the chance to go head to head, he'll smash him into a million pieces. In which Shido isn't even thinking about anything Isagi can do. And he tells Isagi that if he really thinks he can do that, well, they'll have to see very soon. He does then take a kick at Isagi, but Isagi would immediately grab his leg and kind of toss him to the side as he recovers as well. And Shido would say that it looks like his little brother got a little bit more strength on him now, but not enough. Of course, Bachiro would be standing there in complete shock, and everybody would ask, is it true that they're really brothers? And of course, I mean, it'd be pretty obvious. Can't you see the resemblance? Shido would start laughing and saying that it looks like he picked up a couple new friends. It sucks that his new friends are nothing compared to him, because at the end of the day, them two together were unstoppable. And if it's true that his little brother gotten so much better, that their duo would be even more unstoppable. And of course, Jinpachi Ego would eventually cut them off and would tell them what is about to happen. The U20 match is going to be the end-all be-all for Blue Lock. And Blue Lock will not survive if they lose against Japan's U20 team. That for them to survive, they need to take down the under 20 team of Japan. And Isagi, Shido, and many others would stand there listening to Jinpachi Ego as he tells them all that they're going to have a bit of a trial run. Some tryouts for the U20 match, because they need 11 players plus substitutes to take on the U20 team. So let's see who can really create a chemical reaction. What will happen with this new Isagi? This brand new version of himself, a version that is expanded beyond just his older brother Shido, a version that might be able to have a chemical reaction with not only his brother Shido, but also Rin Itoshi? Well, that's a story for another day and another time entirely. Because this is the end, at least for now, of What If Isagi and Shido Were Brothers. And if you enjoyed, make sure to show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, and even leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. And I hope all of you have an amazing day. Later.